When I covered a desperate mother's $10 gas shortage and got fired for violating company policy, I thought my life had hit rock bottom. I had no idea the woman I helped was billionaire Marcus Blackstone's daughter conducting a secret test, or that losing my minimum wage job would lead to running a business empire worth millions. What happened next would prove that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest transformations. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Life's Changing Stories. Now let's dive into today's story. The fluorescent lights of QuickStop gas station buzzed with the same tired persistence that had marked every night shift for the past 3 years. At 1:15 a.m. on that cold November Thursday, Jasper Johnson stood behind the counter reviewing his business textbooks between customers, the pages illuminated by the harsh overhead lighting that made everything look slightly unreal. The store's automatic coffee maker gurgled in the background, a sound that had become the soundtrack to his dreams of something bigger than scanning lottery tickets and restocking energy drinks. Outside, Route 29 stretched into darkness in both directions, a ribbon of asphalt that connected small Virginia towns to bigger cities and bigger opportunities. Jasper often wondered if he'd spend his entire life watching those opportunities drive past his window at 70 miles per hour, their occupants heading toward futures he could only imagine. The overnight shift paid his bills and kept him enrolled in community college, but it felt like running on a treadmill, lots of motion, no real progress toward the business empire he'd sketched in his notebooks during breaks. The rain that had been threatening all evening finally began in earnest around 1:20 a.m., drumming against the windows with increasing intensity. Jasper watched the weather radar on his phone, noting the large storm system moving through central Virginia. These were the nights that separated the regulars from the desperate, when only people with genuine emergencies would venture out into the kind of weather that made smart folks stay home with hot coffee and warm blankets. As he restocked the coffee station and wiped down already clean counters, Jasper had no way of knowing that this storm would wash away everything he thought he knew about his future. In less than 2 hours, he would lose his job, gain an enemy, and discover that sometimes the universe tests your character in ways that seem like punishment but turn out to be preparation for something extraordinary. Jasper Johnson was 23 years old and more determined than the Virginia mountains where he'd grown up. Every night, despite his exhaustion from attending business classes during the day, he'd drive his beat-up Honda Civic to QuickStop gas station on Route 29, just outside Charlottesville. The overnight shift from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. paid just enough to cover his community college tuition and keep him fed on instant noodles and hope. Jasper had been working at QuickStop for 3 years, ever since his mother passed away from cancer, leaving him with nothing but her old car and a fierce determination to build something meaningful with his life. She'd raised him alone after his father disappeared when Jasper was 8, working double shifts at the local diner while teaching him that helping others when you can is what makes us human. Those words had shaped everything about Jasper's approach to life and work. During his time at QuickStop, he'd become known throughout the truck driving community as the guy who'd stay open 5 minutes late if you were running on fumes, who kept a mental catalog of regular customers' coffee preferences, and who never hesitated to help jumpstart a dead battery or direct lost travelers to their destinations. The gas station sat right at the intersection of Route 29 and Interstate 64, making it a crucial stop for long-haul truckers, late-shift workers, and travelers. Jasper knew them all. Tommy Rodriguez, who drove the overnight delivery route and always bought 2 Red Bulls and a turkey sandwich. Sarah Chen, the ICU nurse, who stopped for coffee every morning at 6:45 a.m. after her 12-hour shift. And dozens of others whose stories he'd collected over countless quiet nights. But everything changed when Consolidated Fuel Corporation, acquired the QuickStop chain 6 months earlier. The new regional manager, David Carmichael, was a corporate efficiency expert obsessed with profit margins and cost reduction. He'd installed additional security cameras, implemented strict inventory controls, and established a zero-tolerance policy for any deviation from corporate procedures. "This is a business, not a charity," Carmichael had announced during his first staff meeting. "Every transaction must be profitable. No discounts, no free services, no exceptions. Anyone caught violating these policies will be terminated immediately." Jasper had bitten his tongue during that meeting, thinking about all the times his small acts of kindness had actually created loyal customers who spent more money at their station than at competitors. But corporate policies weren't interested in long-term relationship building, only immediate profit maximization. The storm that changed everything began building on a Thursday evening in early November. Jasper was restocking the coffee station when he noticed the weather radar showing a significant front moving through central Virginia. Rain was already beginning to fall as the evening rush hour ended and the overnight period began. Around 1:30 a.m., during the deadest part of his shift, a sleek black sedan pulled up to pump number 3. The car was clearly expensive, a BMW 7 Series, but it looked oddly out of place with its Virginia plates and travel-worn appearance. The woman who stepped out was elegantly dressed in what appeared to be high-end business attire, but she moved with the exhausted desperation of someone who'd been driving for hours. She was probably in her early 30s, with dark hair pulled back, and the kind of polished appearance that suggested money and education. But her expression showed stress and fatigue as she pumped gas while a toddler slept peacefully in a car seat in the back. When she entered the store, Jasper noticed her hands were shaking slightly as she approached the counter. "I need to pay for pump 3, she said quietly. "But I have a problem." "What can I help you with?" Jasper asked, noting the worry in her voice. "I'm trying to get home to Richmond, but I miscalculated my cash. I have $27, but the gas came to $37. I've been driving since yesterday morning, and my credit cards are temporarily unavailable." She paused, clearly embarrassed. "I tried 2 other stations, and they wouldn't work with me." Jasper looked past her to the BMW, where the sleeping child was visible through the rain-streaked window. The woman's story didn't quite add up. Someone driving a $70,000 car shouldn't be struggling with $10 for gas, but the exhaustion and worry in her eyes reminded him of his mother during their hardest times. "I'm starting a new position next week," she continued, "but until then, cash is extremely tight. I know it sounds crazy given the car, but it's complicated." Something in her voice, the way she couldn't quite meet his eyes while asking for help, reminded Jasper of the pride his mother had struggled with when they'd needed assistance. Without hesitation, he reached for his wallet and pulled out a $10 bill. "Don't worry about it," he said, adding the money to her payment. "Just pay it forward when you can." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "I can't accept this. You don't understand." "I understand that you've got a baby who needs to get home safely," Jasper interrupted gently. "My mom always said that helping others when you can is what makes us human. $10 isn't going to break me. How can I repay you?" she asked. "Like I said, just pay it forward. Help someone else when you're in a position to do so." As the woman returned to her car, Jasper felt the familiar warmth that came from doing the right thing, even when corporate policies said otherwise. He watched her drive away into the rainy night, hoping she and her child would make it home safely. What Jasper didn't see was David Carmichael's Honda Accord parked in the shadows beyond the station's lighting, or the telephoto lens capturing every detail of the transaction. Carmichael had been conducting random overnight surveillance checks on all his locations, looking for policy violations he could use to justify further staff reductions. 15 minutes later, Carmichael stormed through the front door, his face red with anger and rainwater dripping from his corporate windbreaker. "Johnson," he barked, "step away from the register." "Mr. Carmichael, what are you doing here?" "What I'm doing here is catching you red-handed violating company policy," Carmichael said, pulling out his phone to display photos of Jasper's transaction. "I've got photographic evidence of you accepting partial payment for fuel." Jasper's heart sank as he realized the implications. "Sir, she was just $10 short and she had a baby." "I don't care if she had 10 babies," Carmichael snapped. "Corporate policy is crystal clear. Full payment required for all transactions, no exceptions." The child needed to get home safely. It was the right thing to do. The right thing to do is follow company procedures. What you did constitutes theft of corporate resources and violation of your employment agreement. Carmichael was practically shouting now. "You're terminated, effective immediately." Jasper thought about arguing, about explaining how his customer service approach had actually increased overnight sales during his shifts. But he remembered his mother's advice about maintaining dignity in difficult situations. "I understand," he said quietly, removing his QuickStop polo shirt and name tag. "But I want you to know that I'd make the same choice again. Sometimes being human matters more than corporate policy." "Your humanity just cost you your job," Carmichael replied coldly. "Clean out your locker and leave the premises immediately." As Jasper gathered his few personal belongings and walked out into the rain, he felt a mixture of regret and resolve. He was worried about making his next tuition payment, but he knew he'd acted according to his values. His mother would have been proud. The walk home to his small apartment took 20 minutes through the increasingly heavy rain. Jasper lived in a converted garage behind an older house near campus, not much to look at, but affordable on a gas station worker's salary. Or former gas station worker's salary, he corrected himself grimly. He'd just changed into dry clothes and was considering his limited employment options when he heard the distinctive sound of a high-performance engine pulling into the driveway. Looking through his small window, Jasper's jaw dropped. A bright red Ferrari 488 Spider sat in his driveway, its sleek lines and aggressive styling completely out of place in the modest neighborhood. The car was easily worth $300,000, and it was sitting outside his converted garage apartment at 2:30 in the morning. Two people emerged from the Ferrari. The passenger was the woman from the gas station, now wearing jeans and a cashmere sweater instead of her earlier business attire. The driver was a tall man in his 60s with silver hair and the kind of commanding presence that suggested significant wealth and power. Jasper opened his door before they could knock, still struggling to process what he was seeing. "Jasper Johnson?" the man asked, extending his hand. "I'm Marcus Blackstone. I believe you've met my daughter, Victoria." The name hit Jasper like a physical blow. Marcus Blackstone owned Blackstone Industries, one of the largest private companies in Virginia. His business empire included real estate development, technology firms, and retail operations throughout the Mid-Atlantic region. Jasper had written case studies about Blackstone's business strategies in his entrepreneurship classes. "Mr. Blackstone," Jasper managed. What's going on?" Victoria stepped forward, her earlier exhaustion replaced by a confident smile. "I owe you an explanation. The situation at your gas station was a test." "A test?" Marcus nodded. "Victoria has been preparing to take over operational management of our retail division. As part of her training, I've had her spend the past 3 months working minimum wage jobs under an assumed identity, using only cash, driving that old BMW instead of her usual car. I've been a waitress, a retail clerk, a cleaning service worker," Victoria added. "My father wanted me to understand what life is like for people who work in our businesses before I start making decisions that affect their livelihoods. Tonight was supposed to be my final test," she continued. "I was instructed to put service workers in positions where they had to choose between corporate policy and human compassion to see how they'd react. Jasper was still trying to process this information. "So you weren't really in trouble?" "Oh, I was genuinely exhausted," Victoria laughed. "Driving around Virginia on a restricted budget for 3 months is harder than it sounds. But yes, the $10 shortage was engineered." Marcus stepped closer to Jasper. "Here's what wasn't engineered: your response. In 12 similar tests across our various businesses, you're the only employee who chose to help without hesitation, even knowing it might cost you your job." "Actually, it did cost me my job," Jasper said quietly. "David Carmichael was terminated an hour ago," Marcus replied. "I don't tolerate managers who punish employees for showing basic human decency. But that's not why we're here." Marcus explained that Blackstone Industries had been looking for someone to manage their expansion into convenience retail throughout Virginia and the Carolinas. The position required someone who understood both business principles and human nature, someone who could maximize profits while maintaining the kind of customer service that created long-term loyalty. "Your academic record shows you understand business theory," Marcus continued. "Your actions tonight proved you understand something more important, that successful businesses are built on relationships, not just transactions. I'm offering you a position as Regional Operations Manager for our new QuickStop acquisition," he said. "We bought the chain this evening, all 47 locations across 3 states. Your starting salary would be $85,000 plus performance bonuses." Jasper's head was spinning. "You bought QuickStop? Tonight?" "I'd been considering the acquisition for months," Marcus explained. "Your situation provided the perfect catalyst. I want you to show me how to run a convenience store chain that maximizes profits while keeping its humanity." Victoria added, "It wasn't just the $10, Jasper. It was that you helped without knowing who I was, without expecting anything in return, even though you knew the consequences. That's exactly the kind of person we need, making decisions for our employees and customers." Within a month, Jasper had begun implementing changes across the QuickStop chain that revolutionized their approach to customer service. He established a community care program that allowed store managers to provide limited assistance to customers facing genuine emergencies with corporate backing rather than punishment. The program included partnerships with local social services, emergency gas vouchers for stranded travelers, and a pay-it-forward system where customers could leave small amounts to help others in need. Each store maintained a community board where local organizations could post information about assistance programs and job opportunities. Most importantly, Jasper implemented comprehensive training programs that taught employees to see customers as community members rather than just transactions. Store managers received bonuses based not just on sales figures, but on customer satisfaction scores and community engagement metrics. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. Within 6 months, QuickStop locations saw a 28% increase in customer loyalty scores and a 15% increase in average transaction values. The community programs generated significant positive publicity, attracting customers who specifically chose QuickStop over competitors because of their values-based approach. 2 years later, Jasper was promoted to Vice President of Retail Operations for all Blackstone Industries properties. The QuickStop model had been expanded to include grocery stores, pharmacies, and other retail concepts throughout the Southeast. The company's community-focused approach had become a case study taught in business schools across the country. Marcus Blackstone officially retired at 68, turning over day-to-day operations to Victoria while maintaining his role as chairman. At the retirement celebration, he spoke about the night that changed his succession planning. "I thought I was testing my daughter's ability to recognize quality employees," he told the gathered executives. "What I learned was that sometimes the most important business decisions happen at 2:30 in the morning in a gas station when someone chooses compassion over convenience. Jasper kept the receipt from that $10 transaction framed in his office next to a photo of him with his mother and a letter from a customer whose family had been helped by the community care program during a medical emergency. Every new QuickStop employee heard the story during orientation, learning that corporate success and human compassion weren't competing priorities. They were complementary strategies. David Carmichael eventually found work managing a small auto parts store outside Richmond. According to reports from mutual acquaintances, he'd begun allowing customers to use the employee discount if they were struggling financially, suggesting that witnessing Jasper's termination had taught him something about the true cost of rigid corporate policies. Jasper still occasionally worked overnight shifts at the original Route 29 location, staying connected to the customers and employees who'd shaped his understanding of business. He'd learned that his mother's advice about helping others wasn't just about being a good person. It was about building the kind of relationships that create lasting success. Marcus Blackstone had been right about one thing. The most important business lessons often come disguised as moral choices. And sometimes, the willingness to lose a minimum wage job for the right reasons opens doors to opportunities that transform not just individual lives, but entire organizations committed to proving that profit and compassion can work hand in hand. We hope you enjoyed today's story of love, life, and betrayal. For more free stories and entertainment from our channel, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe with notifications.